I think it really brings out the idea of journey and especially movement towards the light. And we really can't see the light source itself, which I think adds to the idea of uncertainty, where you don't know where she's coming from because of the shadows, and you also don't know where she's going because of this almost perfect white. Hi, I'm SETARA Manasa.
And I'm Ted Manasa.
And this is our show, Shoot for Meaning.
It's a YouTube show where we talk about and deconstruct the sophisticated visual techniques that some of the world's best photographers use to tell more meaningful stories.
Today's photo is from photographer Jo Martindale. She's based in the UK. She specializes in creative use of light as a compositional element, and she uses her kids as characters. Today's photo is called Girl in the Light from her series Kids in the Museum.
So what do we think about this photo? What story does it tell us?
The first thing that I see is a girl walking away from the camera. I see a lot of mystery and a lot of kind of openness for interpretation. To me, it shows a lot of growth and, a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I definitely get a lot of those elements too. Some of the other things that jump out at me are Jo's kind of very specific use of the light flare right around her, presumably her daughter's face. Kind of adds to the idea of discovery.
Right.
The other thing that jumps out at me is that there's a lot of negative space. There's a lot of darkness, which of course allows the light to cut through it and creating this high contrast image. And anytime we have a high contrast image, we're really looking at shapes and forms, right?
Right.
And some of those shapes and forms are leading lines.
For sure. Yeah, there's a lot of leading lines slightly off center going towards her daughter, which really add to this idea of journey and movement towards the light source. Going back to the lens flare on her character's face, I think it adds a lot of anonymity. It makes it very easy for the viewer to apply themselves into the photo and kind of make it a universal concept.
Yeah, great. And I think earlier you talked about something pretty interesting too, which has to do with depth of field and her lens. Why don't we talk about the settings she used?
Yeah, we know she used a 24mm lens, f2.8, with a 1/200th shutter speed and 8000 ISO. So there's a couple things we can infer from that. I think the first being movement. We know that from a 1/200th shutter speed, you would really only need to use that for movement in a low light area, which I'm assuming means the light beam was either panning back and forth or her kids were running through it, walking towards it, something like that, which of course would drop the exposure, which would need to compensate with the ISO.
Yeah, it does seem like it was a dark environment. And in order to get the really inky blacks that basically disappear and also get these very bright lights, the environment had to be dark. And so Jo probably had to use higher ISO to get her exposure up, especially when using a shutter speed like 1/200.
And then I think her shallow depth of field really emphasizes the crisp lines of the laser more towards her subject. That kind of fading and getting less crisp really shows that it's a laser coming towards you instead of out, let's say.
She's using depth of field basically to create depth, three-dimensionality in her photo. So if we were to imagine, if she had used a much higher or smaller aperture, like an f16, then the laser light closer to the camera would be presumably a bit more in focus. Then we wouldn't have this smooth transition between near to far,
Right.
which is really cool.
I think it really brings out the idea of journey and especially movement towards the light. And we really can't see the light source itself, which I think adds to the idea of uncertainty, where you don't know where she's coming from because of the shadows, and you also don't know where she's going because of this almost perfect white.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. What we'll do in all of our shows is we're going to pick some visual techniques that inspire us from these photographers and challenge you all to try them in your own work. What are we going to challenge our viewers with from Jo's photos?
I think today's assignment should be shooting into direct light and specifically trying to create partial silhouettes using that darkness that comes with more focused lights to create that movement and, really that journey towards a light source.
Can we define a bit better what a partial silhouette is? What does it mean to us?
For us, it means part of or most of a character would be framed by light, but some of it kind of blends with the shadows, and you get that feeling of being absorbed into the rest of the frame.
And this is different from, let's say, your typical shoot against the sun silhouette, where you've got somebody walking along a beach against a sunset, and the entire character is in silhouette. So a partial silhouette would be where only part of them is really visible and the rest of it is inferred based on the shape. Jo does a really great job doing that in this photo to create more of that mystery.
And we have our photo up that we took. It took us, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes. We used a flashlight, a colored cube, and some photo fog.
Basically, the idea is, shoot into the light and create a partial silhouette, try to make it interesting, and learn how to use that kind of technique to tell a more interesting story in your next photo.
And then I think we have the one thing that we need to talk about.
All right, the one thing. What is the one thing?
It's a small detail in a photo that at first will seem almost unnecessary or just a small detail, but if you take it away, it really makes the photo less engaging, less compelling. In this photo, what do you think it is?
Well, I think the one thing in this photo has to be small beam of light in the bottom left.
I agree. For me, it really adds that little bit of silhouette. It really brings it together. I think without it, it would be a much harder inference to tell that it's a child. And also, it really brings the balance back into the photo. Without it, it would be very, unbalanced.
We had a lot of darkness on the right side of the frame, and often we think of darkness as heavy. In fact, those two words often go together. And we've got some darkness on the left side of this asymmetric composition as well. And that light beam on the left almost serves as a leg, something to prop up the left side and create more balance in something that's already asymmetric. So we'll show on your screen what happens if we take that away, what happens to the composition. What we'd encourage you all to do is think about that one thing that you want to have in your photo to create a more compelling story or greater balance.
Usually when I try and create the one thing, I will take something from my experience and I will say, okay, this was not directly a part of the story, but it really wrapped it up. It made it feel so much more fun or so much more engaging. And then I'll try and put it into the photo. Generally not as a main subject because it's more of an Easter egg kind of thing for me. I think in our attempt, the one thing was that little tiny light mote that was, I think, in front of the thumb. It really brings out the color and it just emphasizes the light distribution.
If you like this kind of thing, if you want to learn more about the visual techniques that sophisticated photographers use to make more compelling stories from their photos and to really deliver meaning, like, subscribe, definitely comment below if you tried our technique and got some interesting results, or if you have any questions about anything we talked about today. And with that, SETARA, what do we always tell our viewers to do when they go and take photographs?
Shoot for meaning.
Bye.